So it took me a really long time for me to figure out how to get my kick drum and my bass to really gel and sound correct together. At the time, I didn't realize that the problems that I was having with the low end of my music, you know, with the part of music that carries the energy. You know, if you make trap or if you make house music or any sort of hip hop, the kicks and the bass are what really make it. You know, that griminess, that punch in your chest. And it took me a while to really realize what was actually wrong. And that was my kick and my bass were competing with each other in the same slice of frequency ranges. Therefore, they both ended up sounding like crap. At the time, I didn't really understand like the basic rule of audio, and that is two sounds cannot occupy the same frequency range at the same point in time, all right? And that's the issue that a lot of us are getting with our kick and our bass line, because they're competing to occupy the same space at the same time. And because of that, our low end of our music ends up sounding muddy, it sounds messy, and it sounds crappy. The solution is really damn simple, and it's really all about sidechain compression, okay? And this is a really quick and easy way for you to get your kick and your bass to sort of gel together so that they're not trying to occupy, like I said, the same frequencies at the same time. It'll get things to sound more smooth, it'll improve the groove, it will do a lot to add more flavor and better dynamics to your music so that, you know, things are not conflicting inside of your beats, all right? It'll make a powerful, punchy, and at the same time round low end, all right? And that's what we're gonna do today. So my name is Rob, and I'm the author of Maschine, the Hip Hop Beatmaker's Missing Manual, #1 guide in the world for machine producers that are looking to understand the techniques in order to make album quality beats on Maschine. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna jump on over to the Maschine, and I'm gonna show you exactly how to use sidechain compression to clean up the low end of your beats, all right? I've got a nice example lined up for you today, and by the end of this, you're gonna understand how to make better sounding music, all right? So let's jump on over there and get it cracking. Okay, so what's up, guys? We're back right now. I want to quickly be clear about why this is important. So whether you're making hip hop or trap or house music, sidechain compression is going to be very useful for you. All right, it's an important technique that you need in your sort of arsenal of skills that you can whip out on your machine, because it's going to help you to get your low end correct. It's going to allow you to get a prominent kick and a prominent bass line. I'm going to explain more about that in a second, but basically, you can't have, like I said, a fat kick drum and a fat bass line applying in the same frequency ranges at the same time in your music. Sidechain compression is going to allow you to have the best of both worlds, all right? It's going to allow you to have a fat kick drum and a fat bass line at the same time in the same mix, all right? So it's going to really improve the sound of your bottom end. Like I said, very useful in trap, very useful in house, okay? This is going to help you to get your low end correct, and also it's going to improve the overall tone of your bass and improve the sort of grooviness of your track, okay? Once you combine sidechain compression as well with, you know, a simple EQing technique, like rolling off the bottom end of your sounds in order to get some more clarity, things are really gonna start to clear up in your mix, all right? So if you wanna learn more about EQing, you can go ahead and watch my EQing video. I'll link that up. So let's go ahead and jump into it. First, I want to make sure that you hear what the kick drum in this drum pattern sounds like before we mess around with the bass line, okay? Because it's important that you hear the kick drum in isolation to try to understand what we're trying to achieve with the overall sound of this track, all right? So in essence, what I'm going to show you is I'm going to play this drum groove alone by itself. I want you to pay attention to the tone of the kick drum, especially the tail end of the kick drum and how it cuts and how punchy it is. And then I'm going to enable the bass line, and basically what's going to happen is once I enable the bass line, you're going to hear the kick drum, the tone of it, dramatically change. It's going to sound more muffled, it's not going to sound as prominent in the mix, and that's because we don't have the sidechain and the EQing done correctly. And then I'm going to jump in and show you how to do that correctly, okay? So first step, let me let you listen to that, and I'm going to enable the bass line. So I don't know if you heard it, so pay attention again. Listen to the punch of the kick drum. Listen to how punchy it is by itself, and listen to the bottom of the kick drum, meaning the boominess of the kick drum, and how it's more the decay or the length of the tail of the kick drum lasts a little bit longer. And once I enable the bass, you can't hear it jack shit. So let's listen to that again. Alright, so guys, I made a mistake. I actually accidentally had the sidechain compression already loaded in on the bass, so it didn't sound exactly how it's supposed to. So let me play this again. This will be the actual demonstration, alright? Alright, so now that you hear that sound, what we're basically going to do is clean up the low end of this sound. Like I said, so we can have a prominent kick drum and a prominent bass line in the same beat without the two competing for the same slice of frequencies. So the first thing we're going to do is make sure we apply the sidechain compression to our bass. And what we're going to do is make sure that every time that kick drum hits in the mix, that our bass line just decreases in volume a little bit so that we can clear space for our kick drum to really punch through in the mix and sound like it does without the bass line enabled previously, okay? So what we're gonna do is press the plus button and select internal and then jump to the compressor, all right? And what you're gonna see is a main and then a sidechain input tab. The first thing we're gonna do is make sure we select the kick drum in the sidechain input tab. And this is gonna give us an idea of how it's going to sound like, all right? So first things first, I'm gonna let you listen to it without this enabled, then I'm gonna enable the sidechain right now. So I don't know if you heard the difference, but once I enabled the sidechain compression, you can definitely hear the kick drum. The only problem is that the balance has not been struck, all right? So it totally basically eliminated the bass sound. So what we're gonna do is play around with the settings on our compressor to make sure that we can get the best of both worlds. We're gonna make sure that the kick drum is not overwhelming, and at the same time you don't want the bass to be overwhelming. And you do this by adjusting these settings in subtle ways. The first thing that I like to do once I have the source selected to make sure it's chained to the kick drum is dial back this gain a little bit. The gain basically controls the amount of overall gain reduction that's going to be applied to the sound, all right? So I'm going to basically reduce the gain. I want to show this visually so you can see it on the actual compressor itself. But I'm going to adjust the gain and show you what it actually does to the sound. Pay attention to the relationship between the kick drum and the bass, most importantly. Pay attention to that. Notice how far this is going down. And this is our gain setting right here. That means too much gain is being applied. If we dial it back a little bit, it's not going to duck down the bass as much, and it's going to allow the bass to be a little bit more prominent. So let's listen to this. I'm going to do this over here so that you can see the amount. Know that I'm doing this on the hardware. Alright, so that sounds about right. We set the gain, we took it from all the way full to down to this level, and that sounds a little bit better. The next thing we're going to do is clean up some of these other settings. And the most important setting that I like to play around with is the amount and the threshold, okay? And then we can play around with the release as well. But the amount basically controls the overall amount of compression that's going to be applied to the sound. Threshold controls at what point the compressor is going to start to work. All right, so we're going to play around with these two settings to see if we can get the tone to sound a little bit better. We're going to be, again, paying attention to the relationship between the kick drum and the bass line. All right, we want to make sure that the kick drum is still punchy, but now we're trying to improve the overall tone of the bass line and make sure that it's fat and not as muffled as it was before. Okay, so you basically get the point, all right? So what we did was made sure the amount setting was correct. The amount is sort of going to squish the sound. It's going to make sure that the overall tone of the bass sound, once it crosses the threshold, it sort of flattens it and makes it more thick, all right? The threshold, as we increase the threshold, it's basically going to mean that the compressor is going to start to go to work sooner on the sound. It's going to cut off more frequencies in the sound. It's going to apply more overall compression to the sound. And basically that effect is going to make the bass tone itself a little bit louder and fuller. But at the same time, as you might hear, we're still going to get the punch out of the kick drum. So it's going to make sure that the bass line is full and really takes up the bottom end of the mix while at the same time allowing the kick to punch through. So I'm going to replay this for you again to let you sort of get a recap about what's going on. And we're going to jump in and tune this a little bit more just to make sure it sounds a little bit better. So let's compare and contrast. Without compression, this is what it sounds like. So it's decent at this point. As you heard, when I enabled it, the bass line was more fat, but we want to get the groove a little bit more correct. And the way that you do that is by adjusting the attack and the release. The attack determines how soon the compressor starts to kick into work. That's not necessarily as important to the groove, but the release itself is sort of important. All right, so what I typically do is turn this release all the way up, and what I'm going to do is slowly work it back down and sort of pay attention to the groove of the track and how the bass line is interacting with the kick drum and make sure that we get this setting perfect. All right, so let's do that. So really pay attention to the tail of the bass or the kick drum and the bass itself, the groove of the bass. Alright guys, so that's basically it. What we did was we applied a compressor to our bass line to make sure that the drum, the kick drum specifically, could really cut through the mix and still be powerful while at the same time making our bass line more powerful. Because like I said, two frequencies cannot occupy the same space at the same time. That's why we're using sidechain compression. We could take this, like I said, to another step further by applying a little bit of equalization to the bass line. Maybe cutting it down at 130 hertz or so, but that's for another video. If you want to find out more about those techniques, watch my free EQ video. But basically that's it, you guys. We threw on, made sure that it was keyed to the kick drum. We adjusted the gain to make sure that our kick could be prominent while at the same time increasing the overall, you know, the fullness of the bass line. And then we adjusted some of the settings to make sure that that was the case as well, all right? Now, I want to give you sort of a really great opportunity for you to take things to the next level. I know you're obviously interested in learning more advanced concepts on Maschine. I know that at this point you probably feel like there's more that you could be doing with your Maschine, so I want you to listen closely to what I'm about to say. If you're spending more time right now trying to figure out what to do on Maschine than you actually are making beats, you're wasting your time. If you haven't figured out at this point how to master Maschine's creative workflow, if the creative juices on Maschine aren't flowing to the point where you can just sit down and bust out creative beats, if you're at the point right now where making beats feels like a chore almost instead of like fun, then you need to claim a copy of my book. It's called Maschine, the Hip Hop Beatmaker's Missing Manual. It is an 89-page guide that I wrote that goes into depth into the most advanced techniques in Maschine, teaching you from beginning to end not only how to master Maschine's hardware and software, but how to do things like sample using Maschine, where to find samples, how to sample off of YouTube, how to chop your samples, how to build drum grooves, how to mix using Maschine, using concepts like compression. We go in deep into equalizers, into sidechain compression, into all these concepts that are going to help you learn how I make album quality beats on Maschine, okay? In this book, you're going to get the techniques that you need to make release ready beats that you can feel confident releasing to SoundCloud or YouTube or whatever. But the catch is, I'm going to teach you how to do this using the Maschine platform itself, all right? It does not require that you set foot in an expensive recording studio. You don't have to own Pro Tools in order to make the most out of this. You don't even have to own an expensive pair of studio monitors, all right? So what I want you to do right now is to click the link in the description, claim your copy of this 89-page in-depth guide on Maschine for just $1 today, okay? The sale's going to be over soon, though, and you're going to have to pay the full $47 retail price for this book. So I want you to make sure that you grab this while I'm still offering this sort of incentivized deal. But it's really a no-brainer, you guys. Like, in-depth information, you're obviously serious about Maschine. This is obviously something that you find interesting. You want to make better music. This book is going to help you do it, literally for just $1. So click the link in the description. You're going to land upon a page that looks like this, where you can find out more information and more details about what's inside of the book and all the things that you're going to learn. So then you're going to click this big yellow button, and you're going to be able to enter your payment information to receive your copy of this book. It is a digital download, guys, so there's nothing that's going to be shipped to you. So you're going to be up and running in just a few minutes. Like I said, for just $1. This is a no-brainer. So click the link in the description. Claim your copy of this book. I know that you will not regret it. This is going to be the best decision that you've made to maximize the investment that you made in purchasing Maschine. The smartest thing that you've ever done for your music and your music career. Again, my name is Rob. I am the author of Maschine, the Hip Hop Beat Maker's Missing Manual, and the author of HipHopRally.com. and the creator of this YouTube channel. So subscribe below. Make sure that you continue to get awesome free content just like this to up your game on Maschine and improve your sound, all right? So I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.